I let an HOA build 512 homes on my land, and I never said a single word. Not when they cursed me out, not when they called the sheriff, not even when their arrogant president told me she owned my property. Today, I'm walking into court with one thing they never, ever expected: the deed. Most folks online already know that part, but what they don't know is how a quiet, middle-aged structural engineer ended up at the dead center of the biggest land grab scandal this state has ever seen. My name's Logan Hale, 52 years old enough to know better, young enough to still swing hard when life swings first. And believe me, life had swung hard. The morning I parked my old Ford in front of the Boulder County Courthouse, I was wearing the only suit I own, the same one I wore to my daughter's college graduation 7 years ago. It didn't sit right on me anymore. Age has a way of changing a man's shoulders, and so does carrying a fight you didn't ask for. The February wind rolled off the Rockies, dry and sharp enough to cut through wool. People drifted across the plaza, lawyers with shiny shoes, parents holding folders, reporters hunting blood in the water. Inside my briefcase was a single document older than most of them, a yellowed, tobacco-scented deed, signed by my grandfather in 1974. Every time my fingers brushed that paper, I could hear his voice again. If someone ever comes for what's ours, Logan, don't let the bastards take it. For most of my life, I thought he was just being dramatic. Turns out, he knew this world better than I did. As I walked toward the courthouse steps, cameras flashed, clicking like hail on a tin roof. A reporter pushed forward and shouted, "Mr. Hale, are you really about to evict 500 families?" I didn't even turn my head. If there's one thing I've learned in 52 years, it's that you don't argue with a crowd holding pitchforks made of opinions. Everything that truly mattered would be said inside that courtroom. And then, ahead of me, the tall wooden doors of courtroom 4C opened. For a moment, the whole world tightened into silence, that strange, heavy quiet right before a storm breaks. If you told me a year ago that I'd be standing here, dragging a multi-million-dollar developer, a corrupt HOA board, and half a dozen panicked lawyers into court, I would have laughed hard. But life has teeth, and some people only understand justice when it finally bites. So, I adjusted the too-tight collar of that old suit, took a breath, and stepped inside, ready to tell the judge exactly how 512 homes ended up on land that never stopped belonging to me. And that is where the HOA story begins. Before we get to the part with the forged documents, the bulldozers, and the HOA president who could glare a man into dust, you need to know where all this started. My grandfather, Walter Hale, bought those acres of mountain woodland back in 1974. Paid cash. No loans, no partners, no promises, just a canvas bag full of bills from mill work and mechanic jobs, the kind of labor that leaves grooves in a man's hands forever. The land wasn't small either. 320 acres of ridge, ravine, timber, and sky. The kind of place where a man could disappear on purpose and still sleep well. He told me once he bought it because it reminded him of the one thing he thought he'd never feel again after Vietnam: quiet. He kept everything, every receipt, every survey map, every timber sale, tucked inside leather-bound ledgers that smelled like tobacco and old rain. Those ledgers would end up saving my entire case. When he passed in 2016, he left the land to me. Inside the deed was that note in his thin, stubborn handwriting: "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." At 46, I thought he was warning me about something hypothetical. At 52, I realized he'd seen the world clearer than I ever had. After he died, life pulled me in every direction: divorce, kids hitting adulthood, 14-hour shifts at the engineering firm, trying to keep the pieces of myself from drifting too far apart. People love to say, if you cared, you'd make time. But the truth is simpler. Sometimes you stay away because it hurts too much to walk through old memories alone. So I didn't visit the land. Months became seasons. Seasons stacked themselves into years. But every April, like clockwork, I paid the property taxes for those 320 acres of untouched woodland. Never late, never skipped. It wasn't until August of last year, when my daughter asked where I planned to scatter Granddad's ashes, that I finally drove up the mountain road, hoping the land would still feel like the place I used to love. But the first thing I noticed was the pavement. New, smooth, too wide for a county budget. Then a turn lane that had never existed. Then gravel piles, survey markers, tiny signs that the world had been rearranged without my permission. And then the stone monument, polished granite, tall as a headstone. Ridgeline Meadows, a Whitmore luxury community, EST 23. My land didn't have a name. It had a man's life poured into the soil and a promise written into a deed older than most people in Boulder. I stared at that sign and whispered, "Granddad, they took it anyway." I rolled the truck past the stone monument with a sick feeling building behind my ribs. The paved road that followed used to be a dirt two-track my grandfather and I drove up. Now it was 6 inches of fresh asphalt. I eased forward. The world opened and the ridge dropped away into a sight that swallowed the breath right out of me. Houses. Hundreds of them, sprawled across my 320 acres like a harvest someone forgot to ask permission for. I drove down toward the model homes, watching the scene. The artificial charm, the new construction smell, the fake sense of community. Then, past the model homes, the real thing came into view, the main gate. It sat right where my grandfather's old fire road used to begin. Now it was a fortress, stucco gatehouse, Spanish tile roof, keypads, cameras pointing every direction. I pulled up to the guest lane. A security guard stopped me. But standing behind him, framed perfectly by the arch, was her, the rattlesnake in designer heels, tall, polished, her clip-on HOA badge gleaming in the sun. Karen Whitmore. She wasn't smiling. She was measuring me. She asked, "Do you have an address here?" I pointed past her to the hundreds of homes stretching across the valley. Then I said the line that would haunt them for months. All of them. Her smile faltered. "Sir, this community is under Ridgeline Meadows HOA jurisdiction. You'll need to make an appointment." I stepped out of the truck, boots touching the asphalt they had poured over my grandfather's trail, every movement deliberate. "Let him," she said to the guard with a shrug. "He won't get far." I followed her into the glass-walled conference room. "I'm Karen Whitmore," she said, "president of the Ridgeline Meadows Homeowners Association." Of course, she was named Karen. "What exactly are you here for?" I placed the leather folder on the table between us. "This land," I said quietly, "belongs to me." She blinked, then smiled, a slow, patronizing smile dripping with condescension. "Oh, you're one of them. The holdouts. I'm sure you believe that. But Whitmore Development legally acquired and annexed this land in 21. Whatever document you think you have, it's not valid." She offered me a pitying sigh and offered me relocation assistance. The room felt colder. I opened the folder, slow, deliberate, and slid the original deed toward her. She didn't touch it. "Mr. Hale," I said. "Logan Hale." Recognition flickered in her eyes. "This community is fully operational. People live here. Children go to school here. You can't just walk in and—" "I'm not walking in to claim anything," I said. "I'm here to tell you what already is." Her sentence cut off when the security guard, holding a tablet, walked in. His face had gone pale. Ms. Whitmore." I tried pulling up the GIS parcel map for this building. "The parcel ID for this HOA office," he swallowed. "It's coming up as invalid. It's like the building isn't legally here." Her face drained of color. I took back the deed. "Have a good day, Miss Whitmore." "You're not going anywhere," she snapped, but her voice cracked. For the first time since she'd built her empire, she was standing in a building that on paper didn't exist, on land that she didn't own. And she knew the truth was already coming for her. I didn't drive home that night. I checked into a roadside motel. Around 11:45 p.m., someone knocked on my door, hard, sharp. I looked through the peephole. A man stood there, plain clothes, boots too clean, eyes too calm. He delivered a formal no trespass notice and whispered that Mr. Whitmore prefers his problems quiet. This wasn't an HOA volunteer. This was a fixer, the kind of crew developers hire when money is on the line and morality is optional. I grabbed the motel napkin and scribbled the name the sheriff's deputy had given me, Amelia Rhodes. I called her near midnight. She answered after one ring. "My name is Logan Hale. I think someone just tried to scare me off my own land." She listened without interruption. "Mr. Hale, you need to come to my office in the morning. Because based on what you've described, this isn't an HOA dispute. This is fraud. Possibly organized, possibly federal." The next morning, I was in her Denver office, a bunker smelling of coffee and old paper. She opened the county land records. My grandfather's parcel had a red flag icon. She opened the flag PDF, a quitclaim deed signed with my name. "They forged it," she said. "Sloppy too. Probably done in a rush." Then she showed me the construction permits. Not a single one linked to my parcel number. Every structure on Ridgeline Meadows is sitting on land with no valid chain of title. I rubbed my jaw. So what do we do? File a declaratory judgment and freeze the development. She turned sharply. No, no. Freezing the development now is exactly what they're praying for. If we stop them today, they'll claim ignorance, blame a clerk, file bankruptcy, dissolve the LLC, and walk away having made millions from the houses they've already sold. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. We let them finish everything. Let them record every fraudulent sale. Let them pocket every dollar. Let them dig the hole deeper. When the last family moves in, the fraud becomes systemic. And systemic fraud, she added, lowering her voice, opens the door to RICO. Organized crime, conspiracy to defraud. They won't just owe you damages. They'll owe treble damages. I stared at the deed in my hands. You're saying if I wait, I win everything. You win everything, she said. And they lose everything. But I won't lie to you, Logan. Waiting is dangerous. They already sent a fixer. Next time, he won't be alone. I can handle myself. Yes, she said. But you're walking into a hornet's nest. This isn't just theft. This is a machine. Autumn settled in across the Front Range. I spent most mornings driving up to the ridge, watching the machine churn, bulldozers carving the hillside, foundations blooming like gray squares across the valley. That was when the first rumor hit. Suspicious older male photographing families refused to leave when confronted. The lie traveled faster than the truth. By Thanksgiving, the rumor had grown legs. Now I was lurking around homes, following joggers, scouting houses. None of it made sense, but sense wasn't the point. The point was poison. By February, the smear campaign had turned industrial. Fake accounts, edited photos, painting me as a mentally unstable loner. You must let them finish the crime, Amelia reminded me. So, I kept quiet. I stayed away. I watched from the shadows like a ghost haunting his own property. By July, there was only one home left unsold. Lot F, 12, a corner unit with a mountain view. I watched a minivan pull up. The sale closed midsummer. The last truck pulled away in late August. A porch light flicked on. With that tiny glow, the development was complete. All 512 homes. I lifted my phone, scrolled to one name, and pressed call. Amelia answered before the first ring finished. It's Hale, I said quietly. It's done. For a moment, there was silence. Then Amelia exhaled, steady, sharp, satisfied. Good. Now, Logan, now we take everything back. The night after I called Amelia, I received an anonymous email, a burner address, with a chilling subject, "You don't know me, but you need this." Inside were 3 files. I downloaded them all. The Excel spreadsheet was a revenue report. Phase 1, 2, 3. Dates, buyer names, sale prices, kickbacks, wire transfers. Next to Karen Whitmore's name was a line item. Community engagement bonus. Maintain resident compliance plus suppress external complaints. My humiliation had been itemized. Finally, the audio file. I pressed play. The recording began with the sound of a corporate conference room. I recognized Whitmore's voice. Phase 2 is fully sold. Phase 3 is on pace to close by August. Then Karen. Residents are compliant. No more questions about the land issue. I addressed the latest rumor myself. Whitmore laughed. A sound like steel dragged over concrete. Relax, Karen. He's nobody. In worst case, we settle. Offer him a few $100,000. He'll roll over. Then came the sentence that changed everything. The confession. Look, we all know the deed is real, but the beauty is, perception beats truth. If he can't fight us in public, he'll never fight us in court. So keep the pressure on. They knew. They always knew. All that smear, all that humiliation, it wasn't designed to discredit me. It was designed to exhaust me. But all it did was give me purpose. Amelia, I told her, you just sent me the equivalent of a nuclear weapon. This isn't just fraud. This is conspiracy. This is racketeering. This is federal prison. The next morning, Amelia headed downtown to the city clerk and the Phase 3 bank, quietly asking questions, not accusations. Questions make bureaucrats dig. The result was immediate. A white city truck parked sideways at the entrance, taping a bright red rectangle across the HOA's polished marble welcome sign. Stop work order. All construction, Sales and modifications halted pending full title investigation. Karen stormed out, screaming, "You can't place that here. We have permits." "Talk to the city attorney," the inspector said tiredly. "I'm just following orders." Karen noticed me then. Her eyes went wide, wide and hateful. "You," she hissed. "You did this, you pathetic, bitter." I drove away, leaving her standing beneath the red tag flapping in the wind. The first domino was falling in a chain reaction she could never stop. The crumble didn't happen like thunder. It happened like rot. Quiet, steady. The HOA filed a temporary restraining order against me. Predictable, desperate, but Amelia advised me to follow it perfectly. Soon after, Benjamin Whitmore himself, the man who signed the checks, pulled up on a county road that cut across the ridge, 10 feet from my truck. He had to walk out of his kingdom, onto dusty gravel, onto land he didn't control, to talk to a man he said was irrelevant. "Logan, can we talk? What do you want?" "Money, land, a settlement. Name it." He ran a trembling hand through his hair. I met his eyes. "You built an empire on land that wasn't yours." He stiffened. "And I'm taking it all back." I rolled the window up slowly, deliberately. In my mirror, I saw it. Whitmore no longer looked like a king. He looked like a man who had finally realized the ground beneath his feet didn't belong to him. They say courtrooms are cold places, marble, oak, and judgment. But that morning, when I stepped through the double doors with my deed in a weathered leather folder, the air felt electric. Judge Hendricks didn't waste time. "Counsel, call your first witness." Amelia stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to begin with a foundational matter. Ownership." She held up the deed. "Mr. Hale, did you surrender, transfer, sell, donate, reassign, or otherwise convey this land to anyone at any point?" "No, never." Whitmore's attorney, desperate, tried to argue I hadn't monitored the land for 5 years. "Mr. Hale, isn't it true you only returned to the land once it had gained significant value?" "No," I smiled politely. "I came back to scatter my grandfather's ashes." The murmuring of sympathy in the gallery was deafening. Next came Karen. Amelia was soft, surgical. "Mrs. Whitmore, you published a false statement accusing my client of criminal behavior with zero evidence. Do you deny that?" Karen's mask cracked. Her voice went shrill. "He was sneaking around. He was filming everything." "Mrs. Whitmore," Amelia cut in. "The land belonged to him. What were you supposed to think?" I was told." The final blow. Amelia held up the small digital recorder. "Your Honor, we have an audio file submitted anonymously." The courtroom held its breath. The recording began. Whitmore's voice filled the room. "Who cares about the deed? By the time some judge notices, we'll be drinking on a beach in the Caymans." A few gasps. Then the confession. "Look, we all know the deed is real, but the beauty is perception beats truth." Judge Hendricks looked at Whitmore, who sagged like the bones had left his body. "Mr. Hale," he turned to me. "Do you have anything to say before I issue ruling?" I stood slowly, my voice steady, calm. "Your Honor." I looked straight at Whitmore. "He says he built a community." "No, you built a crime scene. I just own the land it's sitting on." The judge lifted the gavel. "This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Mr. Logan Hale." Bang. The law is not a canvas for men to redraw when it suits them. This matter is now referred for criminal investigation. Winning the land back was justice. But what came next was redemption. That evening, I told Amelia my final decision. "I'm not evicting anyone." "You're serious?" "You could walk away with millions." "Money's never been the one that mattered," I said quietly. "I want a land trust. Permanent. The land is protected. The people stay. No HOA ever again." 2 weeks later, the documents finalized. The families would keep their homes. The land would stay wild under the soil. The night the documents finalized, my daughter Megan came up the ridge to find me. "Mom told me," she said softly. "What you did, it was the right thing. I'm proud of you, Dad." I didn't trust my voice to hold steady. A few days later, the town gathered in the high school gym. I stepped to the microphone. "My name is Logan Hale, and I won't be taking your homes. The land is going into a public trust. No more predatory fees. No more forged papers. No more threats." The applause started small, then rose like a tide. After the meeting, people lined up to shake my hand. The person I didn't expect to see was Karen Whitmore. No makeup, no heels, no confidence left. I'm sorry," she whispered. "You have a long road ahead," I said. "I know." "Then walk it." And strangely, I wished her well. The next morning, I hiked up the ridge with the small tin of my grandfather's ashes. I scattered the last of him across the land he loved. His land, my land, now protected forever. Rest easy, I whispered. It's safe now. I felt something long locked inside me finally ease open. Not triumph, not revenge. Peace. The land was free. The families were safe. Justice was done. And for the first time since the whole nightmare began, I breathed like a man who finally made it. If this story of patience, strategy, and true justice satisfied your appetite, hit that like button and subscribe. The question I always come back to is this. Was Amelia right to let them finish building the 512 homes to escalate the crime, or was that an ethical risk that went too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did Logan's final decision to grant the land trust earn him redemption, or was it just letting the criminals off easy?